Alrighty. The video is acting weird today, everybody, but we are doing our best with the technology that we have. So I wanted to start this real quick by laying a little bit of a ground rule situation. So tonight's discussion is going to be about whether losing her mother created Nancy Drew as a detective, or if she was already that to begin with, and even more so, how that affects her as a person and her relationships with those around her. And I want to preface all of this by saying that some of the people in this group today have lost people, some have not. And all of them, if they wish to, are welcome to share whatever pieces of information they would like. But we are not going to pressure them to do so. Now, if they share some information, leave it at that. We're not going to ask more questions, and we're not going to badger. And if we do badger in the chat, you will be yeeted faster than I can even unzip this knitting bag. Okay? I just want to make sure that everyone's protected here. So with that, I'm going to unmute everyone else. Hello, everybody. Say hi.
Hi.
All right. So we have in this panel today Liv of gingerhoneylovebeet, Hunter of huntercluehunter, Iris over at interrogames, Tori of torindpiano, Ricky over at ndcrafts, and Scott Carty, who I specifically asked for two reasons. One, Ned Nickerson, but the main reason that I asked is because he has worked with PanCAN and holds this close to his heart as well.
Yeah.
So,
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Or should I say, hey, Nancy. No, it's good to be here. I did actually participate in the recent PanCAN event here in the city of Seattle. And it was a request from a friend. And honestly, it was kind of like, I wasn't expecting it. But participating in it and seeing the impact that event has had on people, but then also kind of reflecting back to when it affected my family, my kids. Their grandfather died of pancreatic cancer, and it was just, it was one of those things that their mom, my ex-wife at the time, um, I had zero understanding of what she went through as uh, a college senior graduating, and her dad passing due to pancreatic cancer just prior to her graduating. Um, and then we got together a couple of years later, and were married and had kids, and just really trying to fully understand all of it. And then it was one of those things of just more and more people that I experienced in my life who had faced pancreatic cancer, or had been a victim of it, or a family member who had experienced it. And it was one of those things to be able to participate in. That was great. And I'm really glad to be here tonight to talk about it. So thank you.
thank you for being here. Thank you, all of you, for being here. So, everyone in the chat knows my story, or most everyone in the chat. Almost everyone on the panel does. But I'll just be quick about mine and then we'll start the Nancy Drew discussion. So back in 2019, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer after going to the ER for a kidney stone. And he started, well, first he had a surgery that we were hoping to have it removed, and it had already spread to another organ. And so they said they weren't going to remove it. He started treatment, and it was about 6 months later, in November 24th, that he passed away. And then my cousin was diagnosed back in July, and he passed away in October. So this fundraiser has kind of been my baby for about 5 months. No, 5 months, because it was June 4th. Liv told me that. It was June 4th when I messaged the group and was like, would this be a dumb idea? And Liv was like, no. And so it began. And so here we are on the final stream of the month. Although the fundraiser technically goes until the 30th, this is the final stream of the month. And we are sitting at $2,350.81. Our next milestone is at $2,500, where we'll be giving away one of Liv's bags. And someone, anonymous, although I know who it is, has kindly started a donation match. So any donations that are made tonight will be matched up to the exact amount that would get us to the goal. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So
That's super cool.
Here we are. Now, going with the discussion about Nancy, I thought about asking everyone for their general thought of what they think. Do they think Nancy started out as a detective just by nature? But I think that's a little bit too broad of a question. So I instead am going to start, I believe, with even before she lost her mom. Because I think it's important. In The Silent Spy, and Liv, I think you're going to probably get into some timeline stuff. I really, really hope. I really hope. But in The Silent Spy, there is a point, a flashback, where Kate Drew and Carson are, you would say, having an argument. That, I don't know what just happened. I just got a notification for something. Oh, shit. Thank you. I can't see who donated, but thank you. They had an argument because Kate was about to leave. And I guess my question is,
it's like Little Miss Drew.
It may have, oh, thank you.
Yeah, Little Miss Drew.
Thank you, Elle. Because we're also going to be talking about relationships in this, how do you think that being one of the last times that she sees her mother, and specifically her mom and dad interacting, how do you think that may have shaped her relationship with Ned? And I say that because she's very distant. And I have theories as to why that might be. But I want to hear what you guys think first. Anyone who wants to start can start, or I can if no one wants to.
I didn't even make that connection before. I mean, honestly, like the distance between Ned and Nancy has been explored prior to the Silent Spy. Like it's been in The Captive Curse. That was a big one.
Mm.
But yeah, that is interesting that this dynamic that Carson and Kate had, where Carson was sort of like the stay-at-home, humble husband, and Kate is going off doing these things that she finds to be really, really super important to do. And Nancy is also kind of doing the same thing in regards to Ned as well. Yeah, I think that's definitely something there. I guess one thing we should probably clarify, does clock fit into any of this? Because that's important. An important distinction to make as far as figuring out the origins of Nancy Drew wanting to be a detective.
Live.
I think we need to work our way up the clock. I don't think we can start with that.
Oh, no.
I do think it's interesting, though. I've kind of thought about the idea that basically it seems like Nancy, I think she's a very optimistic person, first of all. Like, she tends to, I would argue, almost overestimate her abilities sometimes. She assumes things are going to work out and things aren't going to be an issue. And I think she's frequently made comments in this kind of regard, particularly to Ned, but also to others, of how, like, oh, why do you have to be worried? Like, safe and careful is my middle name. Like, I don't ever get into problems. And everyone's like, Nancy, yes,
thank
you
you so
do.
much.
Literally, like, constantly. But she's like, well, it worked out, And I think there's this idea that she errs on the side of maybe not sharing, and just, especially with some of the mysteries, like Captive Curse, for instance. Like, I think sometimes Nancy just goes on these mysteries thinking, I'm just going to pop in for a few hours. I'm going to take care of this, fix it. I'll be back before you know it, and things will be fine. And she just forgets that, like, no, nothing takes the amount of time you think it's going to. This ends up going on for longer, and people notice that you're gone, but she thinks like she can just pop in and fix something and move on with life, and it's super chill. But I feel like she tries to, like, not always share because she thinks that she's being helpful. And I think especially with Ned, people have asked about, why has Ned not been on a case with Nancy apart from, arguably Alibi and Ashes? Why hasn't she invited him? Like, she'll invite the Hardy Boys, she'll invite Bess and George. Why never Ned? And it's like, Ned is in college. He is now canonically on 2 separate sports teams, and he has a full life. Like, he's got a lot of things on his schedule, and you good?
But he can make a full freaking
No, we're not
PowerPoint.
going to talk about the PowerPoint yet.
We'll
We'll come back to the PowerPoint.
clock in Prague.
We'll come back to the PowerPoint. But I think that Nancy genuinely thinks she's being kind to Ned.
Yeah.
Like, she's not always picking up on the fact that maybe Ned is sitting there being sad, like, I would like to be a part of things with you. She's thinking, Ned has so much to do. He doesn't have time to deal with this with me. Like, I should not bother him with my issues.
Do you think there's a protection aspect there because of the fact that, I mean, to tie it back to losing her mom, she lost her mom to a case. But maybe she's willing to do that. What is it?
Personally, I'd like to raise my hand and say that's Carson's fault. Because I think that she's mimicking the only male influence she's had in her life, who has openly admitted that he'd rather just run away from his problems and never talk about his
Oh,
deceased wife.
Ooh.
So I
we
think
are.
he pulled away from his young daughter, who then had to parent herself, and now she thinks that she needs a safe boyfriend she can control. I'm so sorry, Scott Carty. I don't think there's a lot of respect. I think Nancy might like Ned, but I don't know if she respects him, but she can control him.
That's
It's
a hot
fascinating
take.
to listen to. I love this.
Shots fired.
Shots
I'll go on
fired.
mute again.
Oh, no shots received here at all. No, it's fascinating to listen to.
Do you play Ned as him being someone who feels respected?
Oh yeah, I mean, the sort of the joke with it when I'm in the sessions is the fact that I'm never there, right? And got a chip on my shoulder about that. That Ned Ned never gets to go on the big trips, and Ned's just a phone call away. And I mean, there are some things about that I find pretty funny, but I also find honestly like true to life for me. As a human being, it's like Ned's a nice guy, and I think that's part of why I've been able to do what I've been doing for the past 20 plus years. um, is to just be me. And so I think that when you get into the stuff about Ned and being kind of left behind, I think it's kind of a funny sort of subline, a little subplot to it. Um, but it's also true to the character of who that character is, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and I
And
guess.
Tori, you're pro Ned, right?
Oh, Tori.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
we've got like
extremely
a
pro Ned
mixed
Nancy.
Wait a
I'm
second.
also pro
Wait a
Ned.
second. Not everyone's pro Ned. Wait,
Is there an anti-Ned
going
here?
on?
Like,
There's not
Who
in this
wants to
call, I
tell
don't
him?
think, but
This is not
No,
right.
they exist.
I don't think it's as anti-Ned as they don't
It
want
took me
Ned
40
with
minutes
the
to sign
Nancy
on. I'm going to sign off
oh
in 4
yeah.
seconds.
I'm still team Nancy needs therapy.
You're here.
So this is what
I
I
like
like.
Nancy and Frank, but I love Ned. So
I'm pro Ned. I'm not Team Frank. I get kind of bitter about Team Frank people.
Okay, let's take it.
she's not that bitter though,
uh,
because she still is friends with me.
I know.
You can say whatever you want to say
So-
because you have a headset on, okay? You've got full authority on this crew right now.
So to kind of like flip around and instead of just looking at how Nancy impacts Ned, I also think about how Ned impacts Nancy because I feel like he balances her.
Yeah.
Because if she doesn't have someone who is there just living kind of the normal life, she has no one outside of that. She needs someone who's more grounded, as you could say, down to earth, and I see him as that, and I think that he does expose some of the flaws in her, and he's capable of it, but he's also capable of seeing her strengths, and he notes that in The Silent Spy. Even he notices her strengths and says, I'm going to support her in this, but he's also able to kind of like confront her with the flaws like he does in Captive Curse. And so I think that Ned is what I would see as a very viable relationship with Nancy, and I think is good for Nancy.
Well,
So-
and no, you're good. Like that's an interesting point because it shows more the parallel between Ned and Nancy and Kate and Carson. Because thinking about it, not long after, if I'm remembering correctly, not long after Nancy was born, Kate went home. She went home and she stayed home. And it was only after Moira, I think it was Moira, called her saying, you know, dude, this is stuff's about to pop off again. Like, this is getting dangerous. We need you. That she
Only
said
you.
she had to go, but she came home. And I think that's something that I mean, we kind of see it in Alibi and Ashes, but we haven't really seen Nancy fully just come home. She, no matter what, she's on a case. She's, you know, being accused of arson when she comes home. Why? Anyway, but that's an interesting parallel that you point out there.
Well, since we're talking parallels, actually, this is a good time for me to jump in and say, actually, I have 4 reasons that hopefully shall become clear down the road. Have been doing a lot of looking at like the game's writing, and if you look specific, one thing that I noticed semi-recently was if you look specifically in what is the personal era of Nancy Drew games, which for anyone who's listening and doesn't know what I mean by that, Carter of the Nancy Drew Times did this whole like analysis video where he segmented all the games into different eras, and he has the personal era beginning with like transitioning at Shadow at the Water's Edge and then going through Sea of Darkness, where like the games literally they get more personal in terms of like there's more of just like Nancy's life and relationships in that group of games than in the ones that definitely in the ones that came before. And I guess we'll see what comes after, what the current team chooses to do. But I think the parallels in Silent Spy are super interesting for Carson and Kate versus Ned and Nancy, because it seems very, very obvious to me that they're definitely set up in parallel and like contrast in different ways, because like you were referring to that beginning flashback, like basically pretty much the last thing that Nancy sees is her parents having an argument because Kate's gonna go, you know, you hear Carson yelling like, just leave then, run. Scott, like he's furious because she's gonna leave. And it seems to be at that point, like Carson and Kate, like we're not really told a whole lot, but it seems like, you know, she goes to Scotland without his blessing, without like he's not in support of her doing that. Do they talk to each other again after that? Like amicably? Like I you know, it kind of just seems to be the, you know, that's kind of the what we're all shown. But so it's like she goes off to Scotland. She's kind of like fighting the battle on her own without the support of her husband. Versus Nancy goes to Scotland in that game and she specifically calls Ned and she wants Ned to, you know, break into the house, get the info that she needs. And one of the things I think that I'm pretty sure that she says to Ned is basically, I'm telling you this because you're the only one like that I trust. Like you're the only one who's going to do what I need you to do. So there's a sense in which in that game, like even though Ned is still back at home, he actually is, whereas Carson and Kate were basically at odds with each other when Kate left. Ned is actually from afar doing what he can to support Nancy in solving that mystery. And Ned is also the one, actually Ned solves the mystery before anyone else in that game. Because spoiler alert, if you listen to the closing letter, Nancy says, I didn't need to know what happened to you. She basically kind of concludes like the whole like trying to figure out what happened to her mom was pointless. Like she's like, I've always known who you are. I just needed to be reminded of that. And there's actually a phone conversation in that game where Ned tells her that, like, you know who your mom is. So like Ned figured it out. Ned figured it out before anyone else. what Nancy really needed to know, he told her. She just didn't realize that that's what she needed to hear yet. So anyway, I just find him like, I do think there's definitely protection involved in him not joining the cases. I think it's protection probably, and probably doesn't even realize it for him, because I think he's like an anchor for her. So there's always the possibility if he goes with her, that puts him in danger. So she cares about him, but I think also she's protecting her own heart, because if your anchor comes with you and you lose your anchor,
well,
then where are you?
Going off of that, kind of a little bit of a segue, that reminds me of the entire conversation with the Hardy Boys when I think do both of them ask about the detective agency, or is it just Frank? If it's just Frank, that's a little bit shady. But I think that happens.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, that happens after the phone call where she hears Mystery Woman being all flirty with Ned. And I have a thought that the only reason she did not immediately feel okay saying yes to the Hardy Boys is because that anchor shifted. Was not as she didn't feel as sure in that, because suddenly there's this other person on the phone.
I like what Tori said, and I stand by the pro Ned comment because I do think you are Ned's #1 fan. I like how I think you're taking it from the perspective of like, it's this immense love that's creating the protection, right? Whereas from maybe my perspective, it's a lack of feeling understood or respect. But I don't know. I feel like I totally lost my train of thought here. What did you just say? Oh my gosh. What did you just say? Literally, it just.
I'm still hanging on the fact that you're pro
Midnight in
Ned.
Salem.
Maybe,
Conversation with Frank about the agency.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Okay, I think it was it's like you just want what you can't have. So from my perspective, it's like you remembered. Okay. So what Tori said, which was brilliant, was that Ned took a step towards her, right? Here I am supporting you from afar in Scotland. And I think what we missed in the follow-up was her reciprocating it. And so I would love to know if anyone can point out a moment in the games after that in which she did kind of complete that, 2 steps.
That's a good point.
Because I think that's it. He's opening up. Here I am. I'm supporting you. Yes, yes, yes. But does she ever go back in?
Well, I think in response to that question, it's interesting because yes, Nancy can reciprocate Ned's feelings, but the player has to make the choice.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Nancy's relationship with Ned isn't something that's like prescripted. It's something that the player has to decide for themselves if they want Nancy and Ned to have that sort of connection, rather than just have that be told to the player. It's the player themselves that has to make the choice. And that's really interesting that from a game perspective, you yourself, the player, decide how you want to hook up with Ned, if at all. I mean, if you want to, you could just not talk to him at all and do the very bare minimum with speaking to him. On the other hand, you could grind that restaurant minigame to get enough coins to get him that big, huge sword, because you know that Ned deserves the best. So it's interesting that there's this sort of difference in how you approach Ned based on player decision.
You think that's what Ned wants, though? Because I feel like it's just such a band-aid. Like, Nancy's asking, I want this affirmation, and I want you to break into my house and do all these things. And I feel like Ned's like, could you just come to dinner, please?
Yeah.
And Nancy goes, no.
Yeah.
So
really, you gotta kind of show Ned the love that he's at.
So something I thought of is just kind of food for thought here. So talking about how like Ned has not been invited on a mystery with Nancy, it occurred to me technically Bess and George haven't either. Bess and George have been accidentally launched into a mystery with Nancy, but she's never had a case and been like, hey, why don't you guys come with me and, help me solve that? We have Bess and Nancy going on vacation, and Nancy tries to be a good girlfriend and go check on Henry for Ned, and does that and gets caught up in that mystery. And so Bess kind of gets caught up in that out of necessity because Nancy gets thrown into that case. And really, Nancy only involves Bess because she has to. She needs things outside the property and she can't leave. And then we have Ransom of Seven Ships, if you want to include it in canon, but whatever. But they were going on vacation. And what happens? We have a mystery happen. And the last one is what? Shattered Medallion, which again, they were basically going on vacation. They were going on this TV show.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So they kind of just get, brought into things. Meanwhile, the Hardy Boys kind of intentionally end up on cases with Nancy, but they also literally work for like a subdivision of the FBI doing detective work. Like, this is what they do for a living. So it makes sense that she's involving them in cases.
We're
the network now.
Teenagers. Solve crimes, international crimes.
So it's like, with bearing that in mind, I almost feel like talking about Ned again with like the protectiveness. I think there is some element that it's like she wants to keep him sheltered from this world. Like, it's not even just protective in the sense of, he's going to go on a case and get hurt, but just it is a intense lifestyle that she's living, really. Like, it is something where like anyone who is very close to her can get impacted in all these ways. You can get brought in on the cases. Like, Bess and George have ended up in tricky situations. George has gotten hurt. Bess has been abducted. Like, they've been very much at risk because of their proximity to Nancy. And I think Nancy has that thought with Ned of, if I let him get too close and I risk putting him in these environments, something could happen. He could blame me for this. It's going to change the relationship. Like, how is he going to separate all that? Because right now, kind of going back to how like Ricky was talking about him being an anchor, I think that is part of why
Tori said that.
Did you not talk about him being an anchor?
Tori said anchor. I talked about how he balances her
being
out.
grounded.
Yeah.
So, but that grounding sense, I think that part of why he can have that is it's like he's outside everything. She can talk to the Hardy Boys and get input from a detective perspective. She can talk to Bess and George and maybe go through like more of like the emotional relationship aspect of things with cases. And then Ned, she's like, am I overthinking this? Am I crazy here? Like, can you give me just like an outsider perspective?
Oh, I just thought of something.
So I think she knows he's going to be honest with her.
Okay.
I'm just going to jump in here really quick because
You're good.
I know you've got something up there. This is so incredibly fascinating for me to listen to, just because of the perspective it gives me as to how you guys are hearing like each and every little bit of a line or a clue that's done. And this is like total hats off to the Her Interactive crew for how they write and they create this stuff, because I'm lucky enough to be able to walk in and get a little bit of direction, like little bit of what this could be, knowing full well that all I can express is maybe a tenth of what it is that you guys might be able to interpret. So it's really, really cool to listen to this. I'm loving this. Thank you, guys.
So I just thought of something. And from this, I do want to go to clock.
Ooh.
So get ready, Liv.
Clock
For a
time.
couple reasons. Okay, so going off of what Liv was saying. So Well, and what Tori said, because Ned was the one who reminded Nancy that she didn't need to solve that mystery of her mom. She knew who her mom was, right? He closed that for her, arguably. I would say that. He closed that. Now, the Hardy Boys, Liv, you said, you know, they were the FBI contact. They were the ones who, like, are also detectives. They are the ones who are driving, you could argue, driving that force, or helping her along in that, to try to find out what happened, bringing this back to her mom's death. Not necessarily directly, like they're not saying, hey Nancy, this is what we think happened, but it's more so feeding into and helping her more directly with that detective side and the trying to solve that mystery. And then you have Bess and George, and here we're going to go back to Spy, because who is she talking to when she overhears her parents arguing? And
Bess.
Where is she?
Bess.
Because she's talking to Bess, her emotional support, Liv. And what is she sitting beside? Because isn't she in her room, or she's near her room? And what is in her room, Liv?
A dollhouse that looks like the Lilacian from Secret of the Old Clock.
And here we go for a timeline.
I heard the space right now.
I have never once noticed a single thing ever that you guys thought.
Yeah, I
Can
was
you
like,
tell I have too much free
wait,
time?
what? Wait, what was it? What was in
It
the
doesn't have to do
bedroom?
with. I don't remember.
You're good.
Yeah, so as a child, I think it's approximated that she was around 10 years old. Nancy was friends with Bess and presumably friends with George too, but we don't necessarily have confirmation of that. It's also implied that Bess still lived close by, like she does in Alibi and Ashes. Like we can see the proximity of their houses on the map in that game, and it's implied that they've lived in that proximity for a long time because they were talking on like a walkie-talkie or like a ham radio that would have pretty short range. So Bess was close by. And also, what does she say at the end of the conversation on the walkie-talkie? She said, I'm coming right over, because she just lives down the street. She's coming over. But yeah, Secret of the Old Clock is one of those games that I have pondered a lot trying to figure out, how does this fit into the timeline of things? Like, if we were to look at the games and figure out if these happened like in the real world, like if we assume time is actually progressing in some way and it's in a shorter span of time, like how could clock actually fit into Nancy's world, and how can we make that work? And so basically the idea is that it is a mystery that Nancy created, like that she made up, or is connected to stories that she talked about with Kate as a child, and that there's elements within Secret of the Old Clock that are connected to things that affected Nancy around the time that her mom passed away. And a lot of this is very like conspiratorial. I will go ahead and say that. Like there's a lot of speculation. But there's not too much I can talk about with it without spoiling some things with the game. So I will just go ahead and say a spoiler warning for Secret of the Old Clock. If you've not played it, you don't know who the culprit is. You might want to close your ears for a minute.
I'll do this as like
See yourself out. Yeah.
Yeah. You can mute it, and I'll put it down when the spoiler's over.
So one example of that would be the culprit in Secret of the Old Clock being Jane Willoughby, that she is this maternal sort of figure who steps into Emily's life and is very unknown and ends up betraying her. And so my theory is that could be an idea of Nancy having some hesitation after Kate passed, with Hannah stepping in as a maternal figure in her life and questioning, is this somebody that is a safe space and that I could trust, or are they not? Also, the fact that the young girl's name is Emily. There is a character in the games. I'm not talking about a culprit thing for clock right now, so we can probably say no spoilers at the moment. But in Message in a Haunted Mansion, we have the character Emily Foxworth. I don't remember how you say it.
Foxworth, yeah.
Something like that. And this character is said to be like a friend of Nancy's or of the family. It's not really explained at all. She comes out of nowhere and we never see her ever again. And my cat is here. And so
there he is.
So one speculation that I had was that what if Emily Foxworth was a family friend who may have known Kate or who knew Hannah and was a part of that process, maybe someone who Nancy met and talked with during that process, grieving her mom after she passed away, and was someone who was like a support figure to her. And so in Secret of the Old Clock, it is one of the examples where we see Nancy actually having a very good dynamic with someone who has experienced loss of a mother figure. And Nancy's very sympathetic and has this very sweet emotional connection with Emily over that. And so my theory was this could be this homage to Emily that we see in the Haunted Mansion being someone that Nancy actually had that experience with in real life. And she's doing this homage to honor her character in that moment. I feel like I need to pause because Iris's brain is exploding.
We're processing.
I'm on the subreddit and we have not discussed it.
Oh, this is from my brain. This is not from anywhere outside of.
It's all her.
It's all here now. It's all here now. All Ned's head.
I've talked about it a little bit with Em and Tori and Abby before, but no, this is pretty much like exclusively stuff I've come up with.
Yeah, Kelsey says we need to come up with a podcast.
Yeah, that's gonna get fleshed out a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's
nobody beat. I came here to ask, where's Ma?
Oh, we can get into that too.
Boy. Well, and Ricky, I feel like I remember you saying that you had some input on motherhood and parent loss with other characters, and how we can kind of, I guess, contrast that with Nancy, because Nancy goes through her own process, both, if you could argue, in Secret of the Old Clock and in general later on down the line in Spy specifically too. But there are other characters that she doesn't exactly treat nicely when speaking about this, but
one of which is arguably not canon, but we'll assume it is for a second.
So, so when I was in college, I ended up writing a creative writing paper, and I focused on characters in the Nancy Drew game and motherhood, and focused on that theme. And I dived into a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot more, and it's specifically motherhood too. There's not very many loss of fathers. It's really mothers, and like, so it's so interesting because some of them it's very positive and some of it's very negative. So if you look at the Haunted Carousel, we have Joy, who has lost her mother, and you see that she's joyless. She's not happy, and she's going through a lot of turmoil. And Nancy takes this time, and arguably you could say she's just doing it to solve the mystery. I think there could be more there. Because, you know, with a lot of what Nancy does, there's no real, like, positive thing that says this is going to help me solve my case, but she does it anyways. So she goes along and she helps solve these riddles to help reconcile Joy with her childhood and her mother specifically, and to her memories. And but then when we look at something like Curse of Blackmore Manor, where there's Jane and she has a really horrible experience with her stepmother. And so, you know, and then you get Shadow at the Water's Edge, and that's a whole array of a mess. That's a whole family drama mess.
That one's
If you want to go
doozy.
further in, if you want to go further into family drama, not necessarily just loss of a mother, but a loss of a daughter in Ghost of Thornton Hall.
Yeah.
Or, you know, a family member, a cousin, a friend. There's a lot of turmoil with loss in the Nancy Drew series, and in a lot of ways, I think that Nancy doesn't, she's not the type of person, she's not very sensitive, and I don't think that means that she's like this horrible person. I think that's one of her weaknesses, is she's not very sensitive. But I think that throughout these series, she is experiencing other people and how they handle these losses and how they handle these traumas. And then we get to something like Silent Spy, and it's almost like she's grown up to this point, and now it's like, I really have to face this myself, and how am I going to face it myself? And she throws herself into it, and we, you know, along the way, like, it's more than just she's solving a mystery, she's healing in a lot of senses. She's going through all these memories and she's trying to find answers, but in the end, like, you know, it's just more of that emotional healing rather than just solving a case or, you know, saving the day. And so I think a lot of the games is just about, like, the complexities of families and motherhood, and the importance of mothers in people's lives, and how it changes, and it's just so, like, emotional. And sometimes, like, after you've played the games like 50 times, you kind of like lose that. But if you give yourself a chance, like, you really see, like, a lot of these games really focus on motherhood, even if it's pretty subtle.
Well, and you can see that in the most recent game. Definite spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. In Elka. And she is the complete opposite. When it comes to going a good direction or going a bad direction, it is the complete opposite from Nancy.
Yeah. Elka is like what would have happened if Nancy went down a darker path.
Wow. Well, and I think this kind of goes back to her relationship with her dad and her relationship with Ned. And because Elka didn't have that. Her dad never told her. He lied to her. And while...
Well, we don't even know if her dad's really in the picture as
Yeah.
well, right? Because, like, Merrick's the grandfather.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's unclear
true.
how much the
told her.
dad's in the picture.
So then Nancy at least has her dad, who was like, you know, I just know what I know. From what I remember, from what I remember from playing the games, he was like, you know, this is all I know. Now, I didn't necessarily say she was a spy.
That's a fair point that I hadn't thought of before. Like, Carson withheld the fact that, like, what she did for a living, like the fact she was a spy, but he didn't withhold knowledge that he had so much about how she died. Like, he really didn't know much. And so Nancy could probably sense that they were on the same page to some degree of both being in the dark and not knowing what happened. Meanwhile, in Elka's situation, all she knows is like the mother passed away. Also in a car accident, by the way. I want to point that out. Both mothers passed away in a car accident, specifically.
I didn't think about that.
Where they were specifically
that's
a car
interesting.
accident caused by like some sort of
Nefarious
arguably
people.
political sort of
agency,
terrorism, something or other.
Yeah.
And so in Elka's situation, she knows that the mom passed away in a car accident, and that's all she knew. But Merrick knew the truth. He knew like exactly what happened and withholds it. And she kind of over time picks up on that he's withholding something from me. And I think that caused a rift in the relationship. That's part of why she started going down that path of getting into that and possibly connecting with, you know, bad influences that we don't necessarily see in the game, because that would be far too much to try to get into. Whereas Nancy and Carson were kind of lost together in some sense. There was stuff he withheld to protect her, but they both didn't really know.
Now, do we know if Radek knew? Because she talks about Radek a little bit, and she talks about using Radek a little bit, and she claims that she likes Radek. But did Radek know this? Because I got the feeling that he did. Just by being in the same organization.
I don't think it's ever confirmed, but he's so close to Merrick. I think it's a reasonable, if you want to say he knew.
Oh darn, I'm gonna play Mystery of the Seven Keys again.
Because that's
interesting. Like
Ned didn't know, as far as I can tell. He didn't know any of the things. I mean, he knew what everyone else knew. But in Elka's case, the dudes knew.
Well, and again, it's interesting with Radek, because Radek says he sees Elka as a sister, doesn't he? Doesn't he say that? So again, you have an explicit like familial tie. So there's a sense like from his perspective, he sees weird. He thinks of Elka as like a family member. So it's either a family. What did he know? I don't know. If he knew as much as Merrick did because they were both in Residente and talked about it, then he also then you could say in a sense she had two family members.
Yeah. That's interesting that it's sort of like one of those like it's like one of those other, I think it's like a new question for the Nancy Drew game community. Like, did Radek know?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem to
I haven't heard anyone talk about that. It's a good question.
Either way.
I ask a very high level question that I feel like might tie all of our little things together. So I feel like there might be a kind of two competing paths that Nancy is being presented. You know, we have this Ned path of safety and home and making the choice that maybe Kate didn't. And then I think that's also the path of being okay with not resolving everything and being okay with resolution in and of itself. And then we have the Hardy Boys who are presenting knowledge, ultimate understanding. And I think when I get annoyed with Nancy in some of the moments where she attacks people for, hi, I'd like to know how your family died, I think she has the sense that because this has happened to her, she's owed the story. And I think it goes well. Like, there are some people that go, okay, I'll open up, I'll tell you everything, we'll help process this together, and then we're all happy. But it's the negative moments when the people are like, no, I don't owe you that. Why does that have anything to do with the current crime you're trying to solve? And that's kind of when they butt heads, because she thinks she's owed it. And I think the Silent Spy, what I was hearing from you guys, is Ned's offering you don't need to, dot every I and cross every T to solve the case. You don't have to get into the trauma every single time. maybe that means you're not really through it. And so I think those are kind of the two options we're being presented as a player. Do you want to know everything? Do you need that to move forward? Or are you okay with just, I'm okay?
You're good, Hunter.
Okay.
Yeah. I was about to say, it's like, let's pause for a second. Hunter, you can put your...
Yeah, I was about to say,
sorry,
like,
Hunter, I didn't know about the hand.
no,
You're
you're good.
good.
You're good.
I can raise mine too, if it makes you feel better.
Poor guys get tired.
Quick pause. I do want to go ahead and say that I just realized that we reached a milestone. So at the end of the stream, we'll be doing a giveaway. Liv, you're going to be giving away a bag.
Yeah.
All right, now we can continue.
Just continue, please.
So
Well,
I find that
That's
very
it.
interesting.
I was going to
Had
build
the
off what
screaming
Iris
cat
said
too.
Yeah.
a little bit, that I like that the Silent Spy directly addresses specifically Shadow at the Water's Edge and Nancy's behavior and how she handled that. And it's interesting. And you can make arguments with Trail of the Twister and the whole Where's Ma thing. That's become a very sensationalized meme at this point.
Mhm.
But arguably, it's a coding error and it wasn't supposed to happen that way. But that's besides the point. Either way, Nancy still comes in and repeatedly asks this guy, "Where is she?" And
It's just ridiculous.
whether or not she knows the truth of the matter is kind of besides the point. She's still asking a question. He's not really giving up information. And then Shadow at the Water's Edge, Nancy very much has this sense that something happened and they're not, they're not giving up information about what went on. It's very mysterious. There's just a lot of complexity and it seems to affect the current case. And I think that, kind of comparing the situations where Nancy handles things well versus when she doesn't handle it well, which would kind of be those two cases. That's all I'm really thinking of. Because even going past that in the timeline, she comes back full circle. Even before Elka's situation, in Ghost of Thornton Hall, she talks with Harper about Charlotte. And it's a situation where Nancy at least makes an attempt to handle it well. Harper is not necessarily receptive, but that's, on her end. Nancy, I think, handled it well. But Nancy seems to be very particularly triggered by people withholding information, seeming like they're keeping secrets. So the ones where she doesn't handle it well, like with the Shimizu family, she can tell that there's secrets, there's deception happening. And I think the part of Nancy that is like the truth finder, justice warrior, like she wants to right the wrongs, is like, I don't like that there's deception here. I don't like that the truth is hidden. I feel like that needs to be revealed. And she probably thinks that she's doing a good thing, of like, oh, we need to get this out to the surface and let's all sit around and talk about all of our trauma and it's going to be great. But it's like she doesn't like when she feels like people are lying to her. And that kind of sets her off. And again, Silent Spy kind of touches on that in the archives, where it talks about how Nancy is clearly triggered about this because of her own experience with not having the truth shared with her when it comes to Kate. And so in other situations where there's a loss and the truth is obscured, it just brings her back to that with her mom. But the situation where she handles it well, it's more situations where she's talking with someone who is clearly more emotional, maybe more sensitive to what happened, like they're more actively in their grief, or they're very forthcoming with information, and just open about things. And Nancy handles it well. She's like, oh, I'm sorry you went through that. I went through something similar as well. And she is empathetic. But it's like the minute you try to obscure things, Nancy's just like a dog with a bone, like, no, I am going to figure out what the truth is and I'm going to bring it to light, and we're not going to hide things beneath this fog.
And that shows an interesting culture difference too, specifically in Shadow at the Water's Edge, because in that it's like it seems like Nancy views it as disrespectful. Going off of that, Nancy seems to view it as disrespectful if people don't share everything, like share all of the information that they have. Whereas the family in that game understandably views it as disrespectful that she's not getting the hell out of their business.
Yeah. In Japanese culture, you really you aren't as like explicit with everyone. Like I even learned that whenever you confess to someone that you love them, sukida, you're not really saying like I love you. You're technically saying like you are lovable or something like that, and sort of like the connotation is like I find you lovable, and from that you gather I love you. So it's definitely like a huge culture issue where like in specifically Shadow on the Water's Edge, where that sort of and the thing too also is like with like honorifics and stuff like that, social structures in Japan are like there are lessons given on like how you interact with people in Japan. And the fact that this customer is being so personal with you is extremely shocking. Like even more so than like we would normally think of that way, because like we just think of it as weird, and they're just like, oh, this is like breaking social order here. I'm not comfortable with this.
I think you see that especially with Miwako in particular, that she, I think, very particularly displays that sort of like, no, Nancy, like you go relax, you do your thing. This is not your problem. I'm going to be the nice business owner that takes care of you, and you just go do your thing. Like you stay out of this. And it's very like creating those lines of delineation of like, you're the customer, you're the person who's being given this guest experience. I'm going to serve you, and you don't need to be in my personal business because we're not friends. Like this is a transactional sort of thing, and I owe you this guest experience. And Nancy is just not picking up on that really at all.
Yeah, and it also sort of is interesting in the way that that's sort of like she's very traditional, and so is like Takai, but Rentaro and Yumi are more so, or are a little bit more comfortable with being social, because I think they like are more comfortable with that sort of like, I guess, Western style sort of interaction, I guess. But even then, they do try to like hold specific barriers. I do want to bring up who was it that brought up the ndcrafts? I believe it was you that brought up like the whole like recurring motif of motherhood and daughterhood and all of that. I'm going a little meta here, and like,
because we haven't done that so far.
Yeah, definitely not. But all this time we've just been in canon the entire time. But I think it's interesting because I wonder like how her interactives sort of business model, and well, not business model, business like their guiding principles, their business motto, of as far as like keeping girl gamers in mind and building an audience, building something for girls to enjoy, really emphasizes a whole lot of those mother and daughter relationships. Like I was thinking about it, and like literally the only time I can think of where a father-son dynamic was explored was like Treasure in the Royal Tower with Dexter Egan and Wickford. That
Don't
sort of
get me
dynamic has
started
been
on that.
explored.
I would
Not
also,
that dynamic. What do you mean, Em?
I mean,
it looks so pretty.
But literally every other time it's been focused on daughters and mothers, like what ndcrafts has said. And
Judge Danforth and Jason as well.
Oh,
Judge
Yeah.
Danforth
yeah.
and Jason.
hold on. Okay. Why? I have other notes here, but can I just say, why is it that
I have
all of the
more.
father-son situations are just questionable as all get out? I don't like that.
I mean, also you
Her
can
Interactive,
think,
fix that, please.
you can also think about this
But
one's
that's-
kind of an odd one. Is Grigor in Shatter? I'm so sorry. Labyrinth of Lies.
Oh yeah.
Grigor, he has this relationship with a father figure,
Mm-hmm.
and it was such a like side story that maybe you could like overlook it and not think about it as
Mhm.
much. But you also have to think about that as well. So
Yeah. But yeah,
that.
definitely like the focus
Henry with
was the
Bruno.
focus is definitely like these female family members. And I think that says a lot about like the Her Interactive studio itself, as far as like emphasizing making sure that these women's stories are being told. And I think that's very interesting, as far as like it's sort of like, because they wanted to tell women's stories, that they often gravitated towards those stories about motherhood and daughterhood, and even like the loss associated with losing a mother or losing a daughter or something like that, or daughters losing other family members and stuff like that. I mean, I know that in Sea of Darkness, Gunnar loses his wife and his daughter at the same time.
Yeah.
So and it's interesting too that that Nancy relates to the daughter, saying she looks similar to me. So it's sort of this. It's sort of like this playthrough throughout the entire series. I guess I was just adding on to what she was saying, as far as like from a studio perspective, I guess.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how that grows, because we have had a complete parallel in the latest game, and it'll be interesting to see how they further explore that, if they continue to further explore that. And of course, now my camera decides to be silly. Oh well, I don't care. I'll just be frozen on that.
I love that.
I know. Go for it. Keep
no,
going.
you're good. Go.
Okay. I know
I'm gonna try to fix
that
this.
one of the reasons why I wrote this creative writing.
Oh, and now it really
story.
There we go. There we go. It's trying to load. Keep talking. Discord's being silly now.
Stepmother, so I have gone through both. I guess you could say I've experienced both, and the games were really helpful for me in how I processed things. The haunted carousel was really hard on me, because it really made me think about things in my own life, and I think it was a smart move, knowing that their target audience was girls, to and especially young girls, and some of them may not have those connections, and we know, and since we know that Nancy, she lost her mother, like it makes sense to kind of help the gamer connect with Nancy on a real level. And by doing that, we have Nancy experience other people who have gone through loss and other complicated relationships with their mother. And it helped me perspective on my own life, and really helped me feel so powerfully connected to Nancy, and feel like, like I want to know too, and I want to solve the mysteries in my life too. And I want to understand why everything happened, and in a lot of ways I also can connect with her on like being lied to, or like like secrets being hidden, and how that has affected me today, and how I have relationships with other people even. Like, I also connect with Nancy on that on a real level. A lot of the stuff about my birth mother was hidden from me for years and years, until I had to uncover it and confront people in my life about it. And then they were like, yeah, that happened to you. Yes, that happened to her. And just like, wish I knew. I mean, but so I definitely grew. I Before I even started playing the Nancy Drew games, I was naturally curious and naturally suspicious of people, and naturally, like, I snooped around everywhere and got in trouble so many times for it. And um but yeah, like, it definitely, like, once I started playing the games, it actually kind of helped me, like, I don't know, how do I put it? Like, channel some of the things I was going through, and it just, made me felt like someone was there who understood, even though it's a fictional character.
I love
It
that.
was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you very much. So, I do have some notes here that I thought about. So, kind of turning everything back to, I guess, the resolution that Nancy gets in The Silent Spy. And the idea that, I guess, that Ned sort of was part of that. I guess then my question is, why does there still continue to be that, what could be argued as a lack of respect? Why does that pattern continue? We still get the Sea of Darkness aspect, where it's only a choice that the player makes to be fully active in that relationship, in that reciprocation. And could this be a situation of a cycle that she needs to break? Go.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I do think in a lot of ways, quite honestly, in some ways it's the simplest answer, but the one that makes the most sense. And I know Kalina of Story Retold has conveyed this before. Like, it came up on her Midnight in Salem stream tonight. She shared a little bit about members of the team opinions, like some who they find Ned boring, and also Kalina is on record as saying that members of the team love the Hardy Boys, and that's why the Hardy Boys popped up. They showed up in Midnight in Salem, and they probably why they have a minor role in Mystery of the Seven Keys, and you still get that little, like, the little jabs of, like, the Frank, Ned, Nancy love triangle goes on strong.
Ricky.
I think a lot of this is just, I mean, there are people, I've seen people in your stream chat tonight who have even said, like, I love the drama. Well,
Yeah.
I think her interactive recognized, like, of course, I think part of it is there are people on the team who have their preferences.
Yeah.
And so that's going to shape the way they maybe write the story or argue for, let's put options into the story. Let's feed the drama. Like, we're going to keep Ned and Nancy together, but let's feed the fire. Because
I definitely agree
know,
that it's a surface level thing. That I think it really does just boil down to like people really like the drama and
like,
so
we want to
it
keep people
keeps
coming back.
Yeah, exactly. You want to find out what happens next to Ned and Nancy? Who knows? Because this time anything could happen and then Frank could be stupid
This
and
could
who
be the
knows?
one time. This could
No,
be the one
no.
time, you guys. This could be the one time.
So, my question that I have, and this is really a question like directed to her interactive, and where I will be very interested to see what comes next with Game 35. So, with Game 33 with Midnight in Salem, we have this continuation, arguably depending on how you viewed the timeline, coming right after Sea of Darkness, where in Midnight in Salem, there's this tension with Nancy and Ned, and it kind of comes around to a good spot at the end that more seems like Nancy saying that she's extending that olive branch, like, hey, I'm reaching out back to you and I want to work on things and let's improve things here. After having a game full of back and forth drama and questioning and being like, who is that girl on the phone? And Ned, likewise on the other swing of things, being like, oh, you're with Frank Carty yet again, which is a whole tense thing because Ned offers to come help with the case in Midnight in Salem, and Nancy tells him no because she'd already told Frank and Joe that they could come. And so there's all that tension there because, you have to imagine that Ned is thinking in his mind, I offered to come help, and I hear Frank Hardy's voice on the other end of that phone. And so
Well, and I
he's
guess
tense about that. So it's like
Choice
back and
made.
forth. Like they both have something going on. It's like, whoa, we both need to cool our jets here. Both having jealousy moments. Let's invest back in the relationship. But then we have Key. What is your interjection?
No. You brought up something interesting as far as like Ned feeling the same way towards Nancy that Nancy felt towards Ned with the mystery girl. We talked about how Nancy views Ned as her anchor. What about as far as like Ned viewing Nancy as his anchor? Like, what does Ned think about Nancy?
His anchor is trying to escape. His anchor's not very secure. His
She's
anchor
always
is
flying away. She's always flying away.
I was gonna say his anchor has flown to Europe twice without telling him when they had a special date.
His anchor has so many frequent flyer miles.
But yet he still wants to stay with her for some reason.
Yeah.
Like,
That's called
Well, doesn't
loyalty.
he say in Silent Spot,
Yeah.
like, I thoroughly believe you're
He's
going
still
to
loyal
change
to
the world
her.
one day or something? I
Maybe
think he just
he
thinks
could
she's
see
that
dream
one in a
Sea of
million.
Darkness.
That's his loyalty. That's what that is. It's loyalty.
Yeah.
Ned's loyal and through and through.
Well, and I guess that's the next thing that Nancy needs to resolve. She's resolved the mystery of her mom. She's resolved that issue. Now maybe she needs to resolve this one.
Well, and so that's where my question is, because we have Midnight in Salem, and so that's everything with Midnight in Salem, and it ends on that note of, hey, we're gonna maybe we're gonna go on a trip together, we're gonna work on reinvesting in the relationship, maybe things are gonna be okay. Then we have a 4.5-month time jump to Mystery of the Seven Keys. Because we jumped from October 31st to like March 13th.
Yeah.
And in that order, by the way, because Mystery of the Seven Keys references events in Midnight in Salem, and they obviously happen in that order.
Doesn't she say at the end of Midnight in Salem something about Austria? Like, what about going to Austria?
Yeah. Well, she talked about on the phone, I think. She said, they're like, hey, we could go to Austria. And he's like, you literally just were there. And she's like, I don't know, we'll figure something out.
Wait, did
So
he
it's
actually? Oh, wait.
it's unclear at the end where they go or what they are going to do. Because he also just went on vacation because he just had fall break. And so it's a whole thing. But they say they're going to go do something.
When are we going to go to Austria, Nancy? I got to get back to school.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
getting an education.
That's actually interesting because we don't really see a lot of Nancy's life outside the mystery, because this outside of like solving mysteries, because if there was ever a Nancy Drew game where there were no mysteries, then there wouldn't be a game. So it's like
I think
we don't even
arguably there
get to
would be.
see what.
I think arguably there would be. And I've actually heard people talk about this idea of having like an open world game with, well, some people have talked about the idea of having an open world Nancy Drew game where there's multiple different like quest type of mysteries, like you can choose your own mysteries sort of. But people have also talked about the idea of having some type of game where it's just like Nancy and her friends in River Heights, and it's like a cozy game, and like you just go, like you go make ice cream at Scoop, or you go like help with a mystery thing at the police department, or you go organize things at the antique shop.
So like a McKinsey & Co.
I never played that one, so I couldn't compare.
Go ahead, Ricky.
I'm gonna say my last thought because I have to hop off because my husband gets up at 5 a.m. and it's bedtime. So my last thought on all this is I wanted to go back to how Ned views Nancy. And I know that maybe Nancy views Ned as an anchor, but I think Ned kind of views Nancy as like his way of getting out in the world. And we've noted several times that he wants adventure, he wants to do the things that Nancy's doing. And so Nancy, it might be his only way of like just keeping that dream alive, that he also wants to be out and living life. And maybe that just kind of like Nancy is his only way of accessing that. And that I hope that, you know, that comes to fruition. But I thought I'd add that as well, that he's loyal to Nancy, but I also think it's like she's living the dream that I want to live, and maybe if I stay close enough to her, maybe I could come too. And so I kind of view it as that, but I also think that he wants to protect her, because he wants to protect her in the sense that I need to know at least what she's doing so that I can be here if something goes wrong, and I can be here if she needs help.
He says
it's extremely canon that he's very protective of her. That's through like all the games. He always gets upset when he finds out, like, you what? You were like,
and she doesn't tell him because she doesn't want to worry him.
Like,
hey, she's trying to protect him
like,
emotionally.
Oh, no big deal. And he gets like, excuse me, like, what just happened? He's very.
You just got two people that want to protect each other that are just not good at communicating.
Ricky, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight and for everything you have shared.
All right, thank you. Thank you
for Ricky.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
I knew she needed to go. I was like, oh, hold on.
She bolted.
But that's interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well,
I was just gonna
go.
Sorry. I just wanted to back up also very briefly to when you were asking earlier, like, you know, if Ned kind of is a critical to her coming to terms with what happened to her mom and Silent Spy, like, why Sea of Darkness? Why the drama? Like, why all the continued drama? Another thing, again, this is also going back to the writing team. Because this really, the more I've thought about it, the more I'm like, the things we'll never know because everything changed. Again, going back to the personal era of games. So Shadow at the Water's Edge to Sea of Darkness. They all have the same head writer, Nick Plahunka. And I would have to double check, but I think almost all of them have the same story, like person in charge of story development. And if you watch some of her interactive like vlogs on the YouTube channel in that era, they kind of talk about their process of, like, you know, coming up with the ideas for the games, like the stories and things. And I am just so completely convinced, based on the way games 23 to 32 are written. I can't prove this, and I don't know if I ever will be able to like talk to them and ask like if they can even disclose anything. But I'm so completely convinced that I think they had quite a lot of long game in mind as they were building those stories, because there are things that connect in that era so like clearly to each other. It's like I think they had some very overarching ideas that they were exploring, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ned and Nancy's relationship was one of them. And because the whole team basically got dropped after Sea of Darkness, I think there's a sense in which we're never gonna know what Nick Blahunka and is it Kathy Reuter? I'm trying to remember the girl's name. I think we'll never get to know maybe what ideas they might have had in mind of where to take the story. Because like even just for example, I was watching a Nick Blahunka interview several weeks ago, and he said things that have me completely convinced like if that team were still on, like the Sunny June Shattered Medallion, like there's a big story that was only being started with the Shattered Medallion.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're ever gonna get closure on that, because he said some things in this interview that made me think like, dude, you like he basically if I interpreted what he said correctly, basically like Shattered Medallion was only the start of
Yeah, because it did leave a lot of unanswered questions.
So I think if you look at game 24 with the Ned and Nancy relationship drama, and then game 25 with Ned helping, we don't see him but he's helping, and then like let's see, I don't think he's not next in 26 and 27, but goes to Thornton Hall. He does show up again, and then 29 like is in 29 in my opinion is like Ned Nickerson's most important game. I think what he does in Silent Spy is fantastic. Like I could go I will spare you from going on and on about it, but I just I don't know. Again, I can't prove this. I don't know if I ever will be able to talk to correct people. But I'm just so convinced that there was more Ned and Nancy like overarching, because 32 and again like and Hunter pointed this out, like Sea of Darkness is so interesting again because the player is given the choice of how deep to take the Ned and Nancy relationship. Like do we have the reciprocal I love yous, or do we have the I'm not sure how I feel like kind of thing. But if you go with the reciprocals, like Sea of Darkness feels in a sense very like pivotal for their relationship. And then to me, actually, from a writer's perspective, Midnight in Salem like feels so like it feels so much to me like it does not belong after Sea of Darkness. Like that to me, just from my like literary more English background, like
it doesn't belong.
Like to me, it just makes it. That's why it makes it so obvious that the team basically completely changed.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Midnight in Salem's, from a writing perspective, follows coherently from the arc of like Captain Curse to Sea of Darkness for Ned and Nancy. I think it like totally like rips it in a different direction.
It's like
in a way that makes me, well, in a way actually that makes me actually very upset.
Yeah.
But you don't need to hear me vent about Midnight in Salem's writing of that. Well, but
and let me just throw out the idea that things feel very different if you play Labyrinth of Lies after Sea of Darkness, which I believe actually takes place after Sea of Darkness and before Midnight in Salem. And here's where I blow everyone's mind with the idea that I believe the game's order of release is not the same as the chronological order in which the events take place within the Nancy Drew game universe.
Go on.
It is such a beautiful plot, like Tori said.
So because it's very interesting because when the games start, there is a very clear chronological order that is followed with the game's release order. It's all very clearly chronological. And Secret Zone Clock is like the outlier there. Obviously, that takes place, at a different point in time.
Right.
But arguably, like Curse of Blackmore Manor following into Last Train is still chronological. And then we hit Danger by Design, and suddenly it's like, oh, wait, excuse me, it was winter. It is now August. What's happening here? And it feels very bizarre. But then Creature Kapu Cave is in like April. And so again, it's like, wait, what's happening here? And so I think some of the games chronologically happen in a different order than the way the games are released, because my perceptive of how I understand the games is that basically the games are made by Nancy. Like, that's the in-universe explanation of how these games exist. Like, Nancy is conceptually the developer of the games. That's why you start off in a lot of the games, at her desk, and Nancy tells you the instructions on how to do things. That's how Nancy knows the answers to puzzles before you know the answer. That's, like the UI explanation is given by Nancy. Like, so many things are done by Nancy that it feels like Nancy in the future, like an older Nancy, has sat down and said, I want to share my cases that I've solved with the world, and I'm going to make these games to share them. And then Nancy, creating these cases in this game style to share with the world, she can choose what order she wants to tell the events in, and she doesn't have to tell them in the order they happened. And so that's why they're not necessarily all in the chronological order. So, like, an example would be, I think Creature Kapu Cave happens before Danger by Design. And that would flow better with the timeline, because Last Train of Blooming Canyon happens over the winter, along with Curse of Blackmore Manor, that probably happens in like November. Last Train's a little bit more unclear, but at some point in winter. And then we have, well, and again, things get weird because White Wolf of Icicle Creek takes place in January. And so it's like we had August and then April and then January, and it's like we're like going backwards here. So a number of things are in a different order, I think. But one example is that I think leading up to the last games, I think it went Sea of Darkness, happened in January. This one is up for debate more. This is based on my personal theory that doesn't have tons of evidence, and it's open to interpretation, but I think possibly Tomb of the Lost Queen happens after Sea of Darkness and happens in like mid-March, like spring break time. And then I think Labyrinth of Lies takes place in the summer because it takes place in July. And then we have Midnight in Salem in October, and then Mystery of Seven Keys in the following March. So that fills out the time better, because if you accept the order of release as the canon order of events, like you were saying, like, it feels a bit bizarre that we have in January possibly Nancy and Ned seeming to move in a good direction with the relationship, depending on how you take things, and then nothing happens for 9 months, and then suddenly everything's a mess, and it's like, why is it so
sorry,
messy?
That's a very interesting amount of time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Maggie says I really need to see all this written out sometime. So when are you drawing out the timeline?
This needs to be printed out on a scroll.
Well, I do have a Word document that has the games ordered in the order that I think they are.
When's the video coming out?
I have to write the script for it.
Or the very long
part of the question is going to be going back to the question that's raised by Midnight in Salem and Mystery of Seven Keys. Those games are, and my cat is back. Those games are in
Your
that
cat
order.
just exploded out of your head.
Welcome to my life. So we have Midnight in Salem and then Mystery of Seven Keys. I can't figure out any other games that would happen in between them. I don't think that makes any sense. And they obviously happen in that order because Mystery of Seven Keys references Midnight in Salem very directly. Like, it references the detective agency. Also, Zane is a character who is related to the mystery that the Hardy Boys were solving in Boston during Midnight in Salem. Fun tidbit that I don't know that everyone knows that information. And so, again, it's happening in order. game 35, we have a 4.5-month time jump between these two games. Is game 35 or game 36, either one of them, going to be chronologically between those games? Or are we picking up afterward? And my question is because I have felt like, at least before this kind of point, it seemed like whether it was really intentional or not, it does kind of feel like Her Interactive had some idea that there's some timeline stuff going on, like that there's these ways to rearrange things to make it work so that we are progressing through time. And it's like, a few years that pass by, but a pretty condensed timeline. But the question is, with where things are at now and with the current team, is there any perception that timeline is something to think about, or are we just kind of picking things here? Because depending on what the plan is for game 35 and when it takes place and how that fits in, might just blow up everything. And I have so many questions and I don't know what's going to happen there. I think they could certainly make a game that happens in between Midnight and Salem and Mystery of the Seven Keys. But I don't know if they have enough awareness of this whole timeline thing to even think through that.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing about what's going on right now. We're in this like
Carter's
brand.
face in chat. Carter sending the like confused meme face in the chat.
I think if I can jump in real quick.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that what you guys need to keep in mind is, and I'm dealing with a cold this week, so you can tell that I'm not as Ned as Ned is normal, right? Because I'm like a deep Ned, right? But I think what you need to do is you need to constantly run it through the filter of what would Keith Morrison from Dateline NBC say? Well, I don't know. Are they? Is the story in the trunk? Or where is it? Are these people getting together? You got a lot of mystery here, and I love it. Love it. I love the fact that you guys are crawling through this. This is so much fun.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about what we're dealing with right now. We are in this like brand new saga of Nancy Drew, and we only have 2 games to work with. We don't know what's in store
and people need to keep
for the long run in this new form of Nancy Drew.
And you know what? Neither do I. That's the great thing about this. Honestly, it's like they do such a great job of creating these stories, and like we'll never know. We'll just absolutely never know until we're in a session, and even then, it's like you when you're recording something, you're only recording a particular part of it that only applies to your character. And you do not have the context of what it is that how it's interacting with somebody else, how it's interacting with Nancy, where Nancy is. Like you can get some little glimpse, but you just never ever know, and that's what's so great about it.
Charity's in there. Scott's just trying to remind us this is a silly little children's game.
No. It's not a silly little children's
This
game.
is my life. Do you not
I mean,
understand?
this is the best thing ever. It's like seriously, it's like you go on. Okay, so look at this. You go on and you've got your Netflix subscription. You've got whatever other streaming services you're doing, right? And you dive into a show. You kind of have an idea where that show's going to go, and you know that show's playing to whether or not they're going to get a second season or they're going to continue the 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th season, and you're invested in it, right? But the timing and the pacing of the Nancy Drew games is you just have zero idea. I mean, I don't know. You guys are like so on top of it, which I love, but I can't even begin to try to understand like the complexities of it that you are tying together. I love it. It's so fascinating to listen to.
One thing that I want to would really like to see happen, and I think it would be something that could be done with game 35 and could be done pretty easily, and I think it would be very helpful to things. And I don't think this is really uh, getting in too deep into the weeds here, but as some people have talked about with like Ned's character, there's some people who feel like Ned is kind of boring. Some people don't like Ned as much. Some people absolutely love Ned. I personally love Ned's character, but I do feel like there is a sense that Ned has not been fleshed out as much as a character as some of the other ones have. And Ned has so many interesting things in his life that could be talked about. Like, why does Nancy never ask how, his sports that he's involved in are going? She doesn't ask how, like, schoolwork is going. Like, that doesn't happen very often. And so one thing I did appreciate in Mystery of Seven Keys, it's really easy to overlook this. You can go back and look at Nancy's text conversations with Ned and see that when she was preparing to come to Prague, she actually had, I believe Ned came over to her house while she was packing because Ned was working on stuff with schoolwork. Like he was studying for a big test or something like that. And he asked to hang out, and she was like, "Well, I'm packing for this trip, but you know what? You can come over and study here, and that way we can still be together, but doing our separate things." And so I thought that was, a really great little moment, and it tied in, things he's doing in his life a little bit that we haven't always gotten to see. Um, but beyond that, there's not so much of seeing things where Nancy is like showing up for him consistently, like that change of Nancy acknowledging that maybe she's not always done the best and needs to move forward, and also try to be more present with him. But it seems clear that her interactive is wanting to move in that direction and kind of heal that a little bit because there's been so much tension with it. And yes, I see what's happening in chat. um, but I think that would be great to have things get better with how Nancy treats Ned. However, I think what happened in Mystery of Seven Keys is that we tried to just act like it's fixed, but we didn't show it getting fixed. So Nancy says, like, Ned has a full life when I'm not there. And it's like, oh, really, Nancy? Because what we've seen is Ned crying about how everything looks so depressing without you and he has nothing to do. And Nancy's like, please just go out and have fun and do something and like live your life. But it's like, we want to see Ned having his own life and like engaging in fun things and then sharing that with Nancy. And then Nancy can cheer him on and be excited for him. Like Ricky was talking about how Ned kind of lives vicariously through Nancy, which is cute, but also that can be a dangerous thing where you edge into territory of like an unhealthy behavior, like a codependency of, that you're reliant on this other person to provide that need for you and that adventurous sort of spirit, and you're not actually actively pursuing it yourself and engaging with it yourself. And I would love to see Ned actually stepping out and doing more adventurous things himself, or also just sharing his own things with Nancy and giving Nancy that opportunity to uplift him. And then we can actually see that relationship moving in a positive direction. And I think that would be a cool opportunity for Game 35 if they had it take place between Midnight in Salem and Mystery of Seven Keys. It could bridge that gap where it wouldn't feel like a troll when Nancy says he has a full life when I'm not there.
Yeah.
We would have seen it.
That's really interesting. I love it.
They would just make everyone happy, do a 3-game arc. We have a quick fling with Frank. We figure out it's not going to work. And we all go back and love Ned even more.
Well, and I say all of that as someone who likes.
About if
Great.
there was like a WWE event with Ned Nickerson and the Hardy Boys? I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, let's go pay-per-view. Let's go make some big money. Right? You never know.
What's the second sport that Ned plays? He plays football, right? But what's the second?
Baseball.
Yep.
apparently, according to Mystery of the Seven Keys.
That I didn't know.
Yeah. So
They just made that canon.
He could go the full Shohei Ohtani and, international superstar. You never know. Let's not limit Ned, right?
And see, that's
Man,
the thing.
I want to
Anytime-
see Ned body slam Joe.
I do. Because I can be pro, Frank and Nancy all day long, but it's actually because deep down, I just want Ned to be respected, because he's a cool dude. And
This is
she
why I
needs to
want
go to
him
a
to be
football
with
game.
Bess.
So there we go. Oh. But we reached goal, guys. I feel like we should focus on that.
We should talk about that before we
I
spiral.
saw that.
Well, I have a question for Tori. Can I go ahead and give yours away too? Can I just do the rest of the giveaways? Is that all right with you?
You have giveaways to do? What's
I have
going on?
giveaways
Sure.
to do.
I mean, I
because
said I'd
we
do it in
met-
2025,
Yeah.
so that's 12 months. So
we met all
yeah,
milestones.
You're not putting
so-
me on a time crunch.
So,
Did you meet the fundraising milestone?
we met the goal
Oh, good. Fantastic. Congrats.
Exceeded it by
Thank you.
41 cents.
by 41 cents.
Wow.
So, we have a couple things to give away. We have a funny video from Carter that I need to show everyone.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
Or
What's he up
hold
to
on,
now?
Carter, do you just want to put it on your account and that will be the release? Because
Probably
thinking
the
about it, I'm
easiest
like, I'm
thing.
gonna have to figure out how to share this to Discord and to you guys. If Carter is even still here. I know he said he was working tonight. We'll figure that out. But I'm going to start the first giveaway, which is Liv's bag, winner's choice of the Nancy Drew Floral weekend bag or duffel. So we're going to start that if it works. Are you going to work? You're going to work? You're working. Okay.
I don't have a picture of the bag,
But
but
what
this
does it
is
look like?
this is the pattern. So it's Nancy's suitcase floral pattern from the early games.
Aw.
So there's two different styles of bag. There's one that's like a fancier weekend bag, and the other one is a duffel bag, which has this on the outside, and then it has an interior pocket that has the
it's very
the
beautiful.
interior pattern,
Ooh.
which is the same thing but in sepia
Nice.
tone.
How are you able to get the fabric?
Well, it's a print-on-demand service, so I have not done anything with like personally ordering the fabric, but I drew this, like the floral pattern,
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Oh, good for you.
which
That's incredible.
took longer than it probably would look like it did because there's so many layers with different transparencies and things to get the right watercolor effect going on. And also the sepia had to be individually recolored every single flower, not just a filter, because I tried a filter and it looked terrible. So I had to individually select new colors that match the color scheme of a sepia tone and then recolor every single thing individually. So
basically you're a badass.
this is the bucket hat, but
Wow.
that's the pattern.
So how do you pick the winner? How does this work?
So basically, through Streamlabs, it's holding a raffle right now. And it goes for 10 minutes. I can reset the timer.
Carter is still here because he just entered the raffle.
Yeah, he said.
Not that that means anything, because sometimes he doesn't know he's entered, or he enters twice, or he doesn't.
Or he enters for something that he doesn't know how to
Yeah.
Way to go, Carter.
Yeah.
do. Knitting needles. Carter.
That was a glorious event.
Carter, if you want to go ahead and release that, go ahead. You're good, man. You're good. You're good.
Also, can I just say on the whole Ned thing as we're sitting here, that I would love to see, Iris is already laughing. I liked that Sea of Darkness brought in Bert, his roommate, and we got to see that friendship dynamic. Love Bert. Bert is amazing. He's also a very funny character to play. That's why I've made a couple of Instagram reels with him. But also, I have always felt like Ned and Joe have a friendship and have a really good dynamic, and I would love to see that a little bit more. And
what did you do
so
to Ned? That's what I
Yeah, they
automatically
gotta
think
have
of.
something.
Is the
No,
breaking
that's
up
Frank
phone
says
call.
that.
Joe
What
and
did you do to
Ned.
Ned?
No,
I think
Frank
I
has
think
to have
Ned,
says what you do
Ned
to
Joe's
and
the
Ned.
Joe
one
are gonna have their
that's
own
like
late night show
comforting
at some
him in
point.
his
So
trauma.
Wait,
And
what?
Joe,
Hold on,
what?
wait, whoa, wait, what?
I
was
think Ned
that?
and Joe probably have their own late night show at
They
some
should.
point. Yeah.
They should.
You know, they'll travel. They'll probably go on
You said
tour.
late night. You said late night, and those are like hot words.
Yeah, no, I think they'll go on tour. They'll have their own late night show, like maybe Comedy Central. You know, it's all going to be about cross referencing across multiple networks.
Yeah.
Therefore, such as whatnot.
They'll bring in special guests all the time.
All the special guests, you guys. All the special guests. Yeah.
Kelsey in chat says, "What if all the boys go have a weekend at Shadow Ranch?"
That'd be fun.
That
Honestly, like, can we just have a bunch of guys go out and like go camping instead of what happened in Phantom of Venice, which is Frank went out on a snowshoeing trip because Nancy arranged for her boyfriend to show up to his house, and Frank said, "I'm not having any of that nonsense," and he peaced out and went snowshoeing, and then Ned and Joe just stayed and hung out at the Hardy's house.
How do you know these things?
Why don't you all jump in
life.
real quick and tell me at what Venice location in anywhere in the world are you going snowshoeing?
So during the game Phantom of Venice,
There's no Venice. There's no Venice where you're going snowshoeing.
well, Nancy arranged for Ned, and this again, that's a whole interesting thing. Why did Nancy arrange for her boyfriend to go on a trip while she's out of town? Like he needs someone to give him an activity to do. He can't arrange it himself. Nancy arranged for Ned to go to Bayport to stay with Frank and Joe at their house. And then Frank peaced out, and I don't know where he went, somewhere that's not there. Probably not a Venice location, but he went somewhere that was as far away as possible from the drama with the girl he has a crush on's boyfriend.
Yeah, Iris, you are allowed to enter.
Anyone who wants to.
All I hope to take away
we're all able to enter if we want.
Yeah, all I hope to take away from this evening is the potential of someday in the near future owning a T-shirt that says "Frank peaced out."
I can add it to the list.
Yeah,
I can't offer that, but I do have.
She will make
I came to Wisconsin for the cheese.
Oh, I love that. Oh.
I just have the agate shirt.
Frank peaced out. I love it.
I also have
there's
the ice cream shop T-shirt that's not been released yet.
Snowshoeing.
Yeah.
So.
There are so many creative, crafty people in this community. I'm in love with all of this. I think, yeah. I wish I was able to come up with cool stuff like that.
I like how you join in discussions, Hunter. Like you make it sound as though like you aren't giving anything, but there's more than just crafts. Like you bring some of the most interesting
You're an intellectual
points,
and I appreciate that.
To some of the discussions that we've had, and you
explained
the freaking buzzard puzzle to me.
Yeah, that's true. I explained the buzzard puzzle, and I explained the bowl.
Yes,
bowl from Scarlet Hand.
Yes.
I think we've entered the Hunter happy hour right now.
Yeah. I think this is like the second stream I've ever been a part of, so it's great. Third.
I'm pretty sure third. You've been in like 2 or 3. I remember there being whiteboards involved.
Yeah, I was the one that was drawing on the whiteboard.
I remember that one.
That
feel
was
like
the one with the triangle.
yes.
Maybe it was 3, but like one of them was like very short on. I don't know. But yeah, I appreciate it because I do like coming up with like fun questions for Chad and for people who are playing and stuff like that. Just random questions like just whatever comes to mind, like, oh, you brought that up, I want to ask like what if, or what is your opinion on, and that sort of thing, because I like Nancy, I like asking questions.
Yeah.
I ask questions that probably no one else has ever thought to ask or ever will think to ask
Because you
again.
notice
Like,
the
where are the
tiniest
bathrooms?
details.
And I am still bothered with Curse of Blackmore Manor, the fact that there is no sink to be seen anywhere in that building. There's no bathrooms. There's also not additional bedrooms for Nigel and Ethel to be in. So all I can assume is they're bunking with Mrs. Drake, because that's the only place they could be. And how is she watering the 200 plants in her conservatory with no water? Because the well isn't working at the beginning of the game.
There's
The
a
woman
bathroom
is
in
79
Beach
years old. She's not hauling water down all those stairs.
Oh, come on. They're in a manor.
You might
And there's
Beach
no
Hill's
water.
Beach Hill's like a public place to go where people could come in to go, and there's nowhere to go. Like,
Oh
there's
my
no
gosh.
bathrooms in
Either.
Beach Hill.
Oh my gosh.
Are you fanning yourself? Are you okay?
Just laughing too much. My face is hurting.
Yeah, Carter, Mrs. Drake is 79. I remember this because Lulu is explicitly 80 years old, and Lulu is older than Mrs. Drake. And we also, like, we know what year she was born because of the family tree and what year the game was released, and that way we can do the math. Hi.
Mm-hmm.
I've met some 79-year-old women that could totally do that, though. I will put that out there. I don't know.
The wealth
But
of
enough
knowledge.
water to water that many plants.
Old lady
Don't,
power. That's all
don't
I'm
put it
saying.
past those 79-year-old women. Don't do it. Just don't do that.
Now,
All
what
right.
I want to
Well,
see
we
Play.
is I
Don't
want
play. Don't play. Don't play.
Well,
Don't.
one of those plants just
Mm-mm.
eats flesh or
I-
people or whatever.
I was
It has to
hoping
be
Tori would
water,
give us
though.
like the musical story of like the motherhood and the trauma and the loss. Because after I watched that 3-hour video the other day, I was like, there's gonna be a magnum opus about like the overarching story of Nancy and Kate, and obviously we get that in the Silent Spy. But if you do have any wisdom to impart, Tori, I would ask that you tell us now if that's
Musically?
allowed. Yeah, like the concept of loss as a musical motif in that. Is there anything in that?
Okay, I'm picking a winner
So
real quick.
I
Too.
I
winner.
can
Go.
address that while the next raffle's going.
Yes, please address it.
Or you have the floor. Or you have the floor now. Go.
Carter over here
Well,
winning
hold
the
on.
bag.
I think there's another giveaway that needs to start. Then I will go.
Carter
Oh my
over here winning the
gosh, you
bag.
won.
Tori, please take the floor. Tori, go.
I will, but Em, I think
Sorry, now.
you gotta initiate. No. Well, because once I get going, I don't want
Okay,
to stop.
hold on.
Aw.
Tori, stop dilly dallying.
Oh.
Please take the floor now.
Carter said he gifts Liv's bag choice to Holly over at Very Niche Musings. That was very nice of you,
That's
Carter.
Aw.
Very kind.
I have
Okay.
a feeling if he happens to win the piano giveaway, he's not gonna hand that one over.
So, all right. Well, that tells me you need to message me through the Tiltify page over by the donate button. There is a, I guess a contact fundraiser is what it says, and that will contact me directly. Send me your choice of bag. It's going to be either the duffel or the weekend bag, and your shipping information. All right, I'm gonna real quick start the next one, which is for the sticker giveaway. I just realized I need to close that one out. Complete. Okay, so this next one is for the Sweetest Books complete sticker sheet set for all of the sticker sheets they have made for all of the Nancy Drew games. I am going to change this to a shorter duration. I'm going to change it to 5 minutes.
What?
So what are the stickers like?
They are all sticker sheets for all of the games. I don't think they have one for every single game, but every game that they have a sticker sheet for. Liv, do you have an?
I think I have some. Hold, please.
Okay.
Ooh.
But they draw them, they print them, they cut them themselves.
Oh.
But I'm going to go ahead and start that. It's going to be for 5 minutes. What's up?
Could you like, if you talk about the sticker sheets again, could you just please like grab your tongue when you say sticker sheets?
Sticker feet. Why?
Just try it. Just try it. Just go.
No.
And then say sticker sheets. Just try it.
No. I have a giveaway to start.
You're a quitter. That's what you are.
All right, let's start giveaway. There we go. All right.
See.
Thicker feet. Ha.
Oh no, do it more directly.
No.
I'm dropping
I
things
did
everywhere.
it. I did it.
Okay, here's
I did it. Is that
There's
a
the
further
Shadow Ranch
challenge?
ones.
Ooh. Ooh.
Oh yeah. This one you guys only have 5 minutes to enter because Mama's got to sleep at some point. The girls got to go to preschool in the
There's in there
morning.
again.
oh yeah, here's
So
there's the Shadow Ranch one.
Oh, that's very nice.
Ooh.
And these are, I don't know with the giveaway if it's the ones that are like the waterproof or not, or if you get to pick. I don't know.
They didn't say. They just
on
said
that.
the whole sticker sheet bundle.
You could probably pick the big one. It doesn't cost much more.
It's the whole sticker sheet.
The whole sticker sheet.
Trying to see if I have other ones.
Pick a salad.
Sticker sheet. Okay.
Go
My
to
giant
foot and
box of
all.
stickers.
I'm gonna write my information.
Oh yeah, there's
for
Icicle
that.
Creek.
White wolf
I
of
haven't seen that this
a
late.
click.
There's also
Years.
Icicle Creek.
Wow.
These are not stickers.
So so who is where are each of you?
Like where in
In the
actual
world.
location?
In the world. Yeah,
In
in
the
the
world?
country.
Ohio.
Ohio. Okay.
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. Like Albany?
No, west. Further west.
Like
I'd look like a couple hours east of Buffalo.
oh, okay. Got it.
Kelsey, you're in
Texas.
Ohio? Awesome.
Texas. What part?
Close to the sort of Dallas area. A little bit closer to Denton.
Got it.
I'm in Northeast,
Where?
Northeast Florida.
Oh, Florida.
Yeah.
Like Tallahassee?
Nah, good old Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, okay. Do you watch my friend Jordan Wilkerson on TV down there?
Mhm.
She's on like First Coast Living or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, First Coast for sure is our area.
Yeah. She used to be up here in Seattle, so
I don't have.
Shall I
other
give
people
Iris? I don't
here
know
that
whenever
are-
we're ready. We gotta make
Oh,
sure
I was
Iris
gonna
gets
go
my
where I
music
am.
chat.
You're in a secret location.
My location is semi-secret because, well, there's not the other people that live kind of close to me here to ask to confirm if I can say. But let me put it this way: my husband is doing disaster relief constantly for relief from Hurricane Helene. So proximity, that gives a rough idea of what portion of the country.
gotcha.
We have 1 minute left in this giveaway. You can go ahead and start if you want. And I'll just start. Honestly, guys, what I'll do, this one will end. I'll pick a winner. Well, let me rephrase that. I'll click the pick winner button. And then I'll start the next one. The next one will be the crocheted Radic doll made by ndcrafts. That'll be 5 minutes. And we'll keep going, and then we'll do Tori's 2025 Nancy Drew music cover.
Yes, and before I start talking, since that's coming up, just so everyone's clear, in case this affects whether you want to enter the raffle, you will get the piano cover sometime in 2025. I can't tell you when, because they either are quick or take a long time to put together, depending on the track. And it also has to be, so you get to choose the track of your choice. The only caveat being it has to be something I can actually play on the piano. So, depending on what you pick, you might hear back from me saying, sorry, that's not playable. It's either just not playable on piano or it's not playable by me. So, if that affects your desire to enter, just be forewarned. So don't necessarily have your heart set on any one track unless you're very confident that it works as a piano solo.
Abby just won the sticker sheet bundle.
Ooh, yay!
Nice.
Okay.
Ooh.
Quick question: can I get special secret sauce access, or should I consider myself needing to enter that giveaway for the piano cover? Do I get to request it as secret sauce, or
I mean,
do I need to enter?
people can send requests to me anytime. They're just not going to get my time commitment of making it happen within the next year.
However,
I mean, you're allowed.
if
Allowed to.
if your cat were to mount your bun right now, I bet you would get inside tracking.
So I mean, it just means whoever wins the raffle will get, barring a catastrophe, they will get my priority.
If you're able to snap your fingers and get the cat to mount the bun, then I think you'll probably win it.
Radic doll raffle is going.
I don't even know where
We're pleased. I need your opinion.
Okay.
Please.
So Iris, Iris, I can really, the only thing musically in terms of this conversation that I have thought through, and this was actually at M's request several months ago, was specifically the track Kate. Obviously, anyone who's played Silent Spy is aware that that's possibly the most story significant piece of music in the entire series, because it's the track, it's a song, it's canon that Nancy's mom actually wrote it and that she put in parts that stand for Nancy and for Carson and for her in different parts of the song, and it's a whole so that's the only one I've thought about, because Em actually asked me several months ago what I thought about in terms of that track and how does it connect to this whole Nancy losing her mom. So I spent a lot of time looking at that track and thinking about it and considering does it reflect what kind of interesting things. So it actually is musically, I do think there's some interesting observations that kind of jump out and do tie into this. So, and I actually have I have the sheet music in front of me. I found it today when I was cleaning my room. I was like, oh yeah, because I had the sheet music in front of me and I had scribbled notes all over it so I was glad. I was perfect, I found that today. So this is, again, just to refresh everyone's memory, or if someone has not played Silent Spy, doesn't know how this music fits into the game. So there is a right hand part that has the melody the entire time, and it basically has two melodies, and the first one is Nancy's melody, and the one that comes halfway through is Carson's melody. And then Kate, according to the game, Kate what represents Kate is the left hand, the bass line. Specifically in the game, it has it as like this little snippet, like at the very end of the music. But I think that's more just for logistical purposes. I think basically what you could say is that Kate is the entire bass line. Like, if the left hand is playing, I think you could say just the entire left hand represents Kate. And then Nancy and Carson are the two melodies in the song. So musically, that's very interesting to me, because in music, the bass line exists not to, usually in this kind of solo, it's not meant to draw attention to itself. It is meant to undergird and support the melody, to allow those to shine. So I look at it as Kate is being a good mom, good wife. So in a sense, she is the supporter. It's not about her, it's about how she can help Nancy and Carson be the best versions of themselves. But so it's interesting, that track. The way it's written, like, it's a very Kate's part, again, the left hand, like the bass line, it's very repetitive. Like it starts do 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 do, and then the only time it ever deviates from that is like sometimes, like, just the harmonies will change, but it's always the same. It's always the same rhythm. So it's consistent and repetitive, and it kind of becomes almost like numbing in a sense that, like, once the melody starts going, you kind of almost like you don't even pay attention to the bass line anymore, and you just kind of like, you just follow along with the melody. But if you were to try to play that track and you take the bass line away, you would feel the difference. Like, it would feel like a totally different piece of music, because the way Thomas Regin wrote it, he has this, like, rather than doing everything on the downbeat, he does this it's a syncopated thing. So it actually, like, it's one of those, like, it actually kind of changes the way you feel the music, the way you feel the melody. And so if you were to just take it away, like, the melody would sound different and it would sound weaker. Again, even just because the rhythm is gone, but then also just because, like, you have no bass line, like, you just lost your support. So I do think, like, that also ties in. Silent Spy in particular kind of, I think, shows Nancy and Carson, they're kind of almost like lost at sea a bit for the most of that game, both in terms of how to relate to each other, but then also just, you can just tell, like, they finally both have been forced to come to terms with talking about Kate and what she did and what happened to her. And so, the game actually, like, draws attention to, like, I think, again, also in the ending letter, there's something about, like, Nancy says, I can hear your song now, if the world is quiet enough. So I think part of it is, so I think also part of it is, like, that track, there's almost a sense in which that whole game is about, like, Nancy and Carson have to learn how to hear the music again. The music, because they have not been able to hear it ever since Kate. Because, obviously, when we see all those cutscenes, like, we see Nancy trying to learn the song, whether her mom's trying to teach it to her, and Nancy's like, I can't do it. Like, I'll never be able to figure this out. So everything we see in terms of that, it's like, it's all just like, Nancy, it doesn't make sense. Nancy can't do it. Nancy can't figure it out. She's getting frustrated, and her mom's like, no, like, she's like, I'll never be as good as you. And Kate tells her, like, you're gonna be better than I am. And then the end credits actually kind of blew my mind when I stopped and thought about it, because, like, here's a thought for you all. We know, if you finish the game and you get to the special end credits, you hear Carson and Nancy sitting at the piano talking. And Carson, at that point, is playing the whole thing. And he's not playing it perfectly, but at that point, like, he's playing it pretty accurately. And Nancy makes this comment, like, it's nice to hear someone at the piano again, like, something like that. which I'm like, wait. I'm like, so basically what you're telling me, I think, is that I think you could argue basically that piano sat untouched in their house for years.
Gorgeous baby Grant.
Like I don't think I think basically I took that line to mean basically no one touched that piano after Kate died.
Yeah.
Like they
Except
probably
rock.
kept it in good condition, but other than that, like it seems like it just sat there.
And then someone threw a
And
rock at it.
Yeah.
Music in the literary tradition, if you tie it to things like actually William Shakespeare is the best example of this. In the literary tradition, music is meant to symbolize order and harmony. So like usually like in a Shakespeare play, for example, anytime a character goes on and talks about how much they hate music, that's an immediate signal that they're a bad guy. And that's also why a lot of Shakespeare plays like end with a song or something like that, because everything has been put back to rights, either sadly or in a very happy way, but everything's like put back to order. So like the absence of music from the Drew home until the Silent Spy credits, kind of to me that reflects like, again, Carson and Nancy, they had not properly dealt with the loss of Kate until that game. And so Nancy couldn't hear her mom's song until the end of that game. And Carson, no one was able to play Kate's song until the end of that game, when Carson finally, like, holy cow, like pulls it deep out of his memory, like, is able to learn how to play it. And then he's playing it while Nancy sits with him at the end of the game. And so that is the first time, it would seem, that music is restored. Like music is restored to the Drew household in the sense that like someone in the family is playing the piano again. And so I see that as reflective of the journey, like, the music is back. Nancy can hear the song. Like they have dealt with, like, it doesn't mean there's not still pain, but they have finally like properly discussed and addressed what it means to lose Kate. But then also, again, just going back to the track itself, I always find the way the track ends really interesting, because again, the left hand kind of just keeps doing this do 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 do, and then at some point it just stops. And usually in music, if I were just playing that, I would want to do some sort of like maybe really low note, or like maybe play something in the right hand to make it very obvious, like we have hit the end of the song. And that track kind of almost feels like it doesn't have an ending. Like it feels like it could either just keep looping, or that it kind of just like, whoa, it just like stopped, and it doesn't feel like it has closure, which again, kind of what is the big deal in Silent Spy. There's a sense of like Carson and Nancy lack closure. And so it's kind of like a journey to get closure on what happened. So that's kind of like my scribbled out off the cuff, not clearly outlined, but I did think about it. So
I think I had this idea, and obviously you're coming up with all these awesome projects. I would love to learn like actual music theory, but every time I try, it just doesn't work out. I don't know if like through shorts or something, if you're able to teach music theory through Nancy Drew music, that would be
wow.
That would be wild.
Oh, get on that, Tori. Really easy stuff.
A fellow musician.
Oh,
Maggie
oh
won.
My gosh.
Ooh.
The
well,
track
Maggie.
picker, I guess. Could you call it? Yeah.
Yeah, the random name generator does love her.
They really do love her.
That's funny because
This is,
she
like, the
was
seventh thing I've seen her win in like 2 months.
well, and she was the first person to find the unreleased piano cover that I hid in my compilation video several months ago. So she got to pick from all the piano covers that I already had recorded, but now she actually gets to, you know, just throw a track.
Maggie just hears the music.
That I haven't done. Oh yeah, she's a.
So,
yeah.
There's one thing that's interesting that, Tori, you made me think of, because I hadn't really sat down and acknowledged the fact that, like, the piano went untouched for probably for all that time, and at least specifically the idea that that Carson knows how to play the piano, and he hadn't probably sat at that piano and played in all these years. And just to think about with the Silent Spy, the fact that Carson, like, he's so worried about Nancy and wants to protect her and wants to step in and take care of her and be there for her. And he says, you know, I'm coming to Scotland, and he tries and he can't. Like, he's stuck and he can't be there for Nancy when Nancy is trying to process all this new information and learn all of these new things and deal with something very emotionally intense, and he can't be there with her for it. But what can he do? There's a one thing. Nancy says, "Dad, I need you to get me this song. I know you don't have the music for it. You haven't played a piano in 8 years, but I need you to get me this song." And so Carson's one thing that he can do for his daughter is to sit at the piano and do the one thing he's avoided doing for 8 years.
Yeah.
And have to listen in his mind to his wife playing the piano and bring that back to life again.
Yes.
And then gift that to his daughter.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I would like to point out, like, the title of the game, The Silent Spy. Like, obviously there's the meaning that Moira gives to Nancy, that a silent spy is a dead spy, but I also think, kind of at a more like metaphorical level, again tying it back to music, Kate is the silent spy because Carson and Nancy stopped hearing the music.
Yeah.
So again, it's significant that the music, like, it's so symbolic that the music comes back, that Carson plays, and then also that they stuck those credits in where Carson's playing.
Credits on that game.
On that note,
it's such an underrated game in my opinion.
Yeah.
On that note, it is past midnight.
I gotta sign off.
Yeah. I have to take the kids to preschool in the morning. But this has been...
I'm not taking anyone's preschool kids tomorrow. I'm just gonna do it. But I do have to go to bed, so good night, you guys.
Good night. Thank you for joining.
Good night. Thank you so much for
it's nice to talk to you.
being a part. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
But I think that's that's a good place to call it for the night. And thank all of you guys for coming. Thank you, Iris, for hyping it up in the chat and on Instagram all throughout the discussion. I feel like that's what you were doing quietly. You're like, hype.
It was that, and also Tuna was screaming the whole time. So I don't know if you guys heard a tiny cat. She was shocked.
Nope.
No. Oh my god, that's funny.
Bless.
I think, Discord's pretty good with filtering out background sound.
Yeah, they
I
are.
think my
considered a perk.
You didn't
I think
hear any
the
of that, did
TV's
you?
been playing something big and loud the entire stream, and you guys haven't heard it. So
Nope. I have a screaming goat. I just set it off. I don't think you heard any of it.
Nope.
It blocks it out, sadly.
But thank you all for being here, all of you that I'm talking to directly, and everyone in the chat. Thank you for everything all throughout the month, and it's still not over. Carter's late night is still happening. So we'll see what happens then. I'm not going to change anything. If we get more donations during that, awesome. But I like the completeness right now. I like seeing the purple bar, so I don't know if I want to add extra white to that bar at the end. I'll just let it get more purple.
It's just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
You've done amazing. I just want to say,
Thank you.
this has been a masterclass. This is absolutely incredible. I think everyone's just gotten so excited. So don't cry, but this has been awesome, and we are all very happy to have participated. So congrats.
I will cry, but I'll try to do
Yeah,
it off
you-
camera.
You mentioned
Next
before,
time.
like, how you were worried about, like, if this is a good idea or not, but very clearly you've been able to pull this off, and we're just all proud of what you've been able to accomplish. So seriously, thank you so much, Em. You are doing a lot of good. Like, you thought that the goal would be like $700 or $900, and you went past that. So seriously, fantastic.
Thank you guys for helping.
Also,
You're
shout
awesome.
out to all of our Clue Crew people.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I remember, like a month ago, like right before the month started, and was still debating like what to set the goal for, because she's like, I don't want to get too optimistic. Like, maybe we'll be doing good to even break like $500. Like maybe that's even asking too much. And then look how fast we've just blown it out of the water. Like night one, we had like $1,000. Like
Yeah.
it's just
I lost my
crazy.
shit during that stream, and then Carter with the
You
freaking
did.
knitting needles.
It's great times, but like it's so good to see, and I think especially with like there's so many things in our world right now, and especially for those within America, there's a lot of division and a lot of anxiety happening, and so I think to see a community that has come together this month and worked together towards something good, and just had that uplifting spirit and uplifting each other and encouraging each other is such a beautiful thing to see, especially right now. So thank you, Em, for providing the avenue for that. I think that was great that we had that opportunity this month.
I can't, my only response is thank you guys for helping. Because I couldn't have done it without all of you. Literally, I would have pulled my hair out.
I think the incentives were out of this world too. I think everyone that provided those was crazy.
I'm excited for my soap. I'm trying to use up because I got like 12 bars of soap from you.
Well, I have so many.
I'm trying to use up a lot of soap.
I have so many left. I'm going to be using my own soap forever.
Guys, go on there and buy the soap. Who cares we hit the goal? You need soap. We all need soap. You're always going to use soap. It's never a bad idea to have soap. Just buy the soap. It doesn't cost that much.
Have like a stockpile of soap?
Well, not anymore. She gave it to all the hurricane victims. So she could probably use soap too, maybe. Yeah, that was so context. I asked my mom if she had any toiletries and stuff she could spare to give to donations towards people who have been affected by a recent hurricane, and she gave me like 8 bars of soap that she just had at her house as like her stockpile for backups, and that was probably not all she had as well. That was just part of it, probably.
I agree. Abby,
and I'm very confused because there's 2 people in her house. I don't know why she had so many bars of soap.
Does she make soap?
No,
that's why
this
I
was
have
all like
that
Dove bars of soap. These were bought from the store. She does not make soap. Oops, all soap.
You're redeemable now with Liv saying soap so many times.
Yes. Soap, 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 soap. I'm going to need you to record yourself saying soap 5 billion times and send it to me.
People collect figurines. Liv's mom collects soap. Which is funny because there's probably other things that I could say she collects besides that. But the soap thing cracked me up quite a bit, I will say that. Because I was going through the donations in the bag, and I'm like, how are there this many bars of soap? I didn't know she even used this kind of soap. Like, I was very confused.
Well, she doesn't. That's the backup soap. There's actually another stash you don't know about.
So that's just all for in emergencies.
Yeah. That's what she could
Oh,
figure.
God.
That would be if she was really desperate. But she's got the actual soap somewhere else.
Yeah. The backup soap, the travel soap, the special occasion soap.
While everyone's
That's how cool
washing
my
up and
mom
getting
is, though.
clean.
She filled up the back of my car
Oh my
with
God.
toiletries and food and all of that to donate. That was just things she could spare from her house. That like didn't cost her any extra money. It was just things she had that she could give away.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
This is
Well-
what emergency preparedness is actually for. Have extra so that you could take care of yourself or take care of people in need.
Yes.
Be prepared to give without even having to go spend a bunch of money to do it. Just like, nope, I already got you. I've got soap right here. What are you talking about? I got the soap.
Got the soap.
We just end it like that, please. It's on soap.
So,
Yes. Yes. Oh, I have plans.
oh no.
Ooh, more plans.
All right. All
This is
right.
making me think of the thing with Jenna Marbles and her dog that's obsessed with soap
Oh my gosh.
and likes Irish Spring, apparently, in particular. There's
On
a
that
song
note-
about it, is why I think of it.
On that
Anyway.
note, thank you, everyone. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the U.S. And we're
Happy
gonna...
People not in the U.S. who want to celebrate for some
Yeah,
reason.
exactly. Happy Family
We don't
Day.
discriminate. If you want an excuse to eat
And-
yummy food, I'm not stopping you.
And for the Canadians, hopefully you had a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah.
If you want a
But
second one.
yes.
Second
But-
Thanksgiving.
I am going to go ahead and call
Well,
it for the
second
night
Thanksgiving.
because holy mackerel, I am tired and more than likely at least one child is going to wake me up in the middle of the night. So
Mm.
this is the last stream on my channel for the month. Keep an eye out everywhere else for other people's streams and then watch Carter's late night. It was wonderful last year, and I have a feeling it's going
Incredible.
to be incredible this
life-changing.
year. Also, keep an eye because
So
I told
excited.
him to post the
I think he said he posted it.
his thing. Yeah, go look at his because he posted a really. I call it Tornado Carter, but it's yeah, Trail of the Twister, and it's hilarious. But thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Holy mackerel.